Hello and welcome to the inaugural edition of the Confirmed Epic Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Bell, and join me today is...
I'm Jerry Reed, also known as Barbecue 17.
Great to have you with me, Barbecue 17, our number one contributor to the Epic Review. He's been writing some great stuff. The Confirmed Epic Podcast is the official podcast of the Epic Review, and you can find all of our work at theepicreview.blogspot.com. That's the Epic Review, all one word, THEPIC. All right. Basically, what we do at the Epic Review is review all the things that you care the most about that really don't mean that much in life, but the stuff that we look forward to the most on a day-to-day basis anyways. So, we're going to start each week of the Confirmed Epic Podcast with what have you been checking out this week? What have we been delving into in our own personal lives in the world of comics, collecting, television, movies? And I'm going to let Mr. Reed start us out. And so what have you been checking out this week, Jerry?
Well, I was looking at a couple things I've been checking out this week. I just finished reading the old Flemming James Bond novel, Moonraker, which I think was from like 1954 or something. It was really good. I've been on a Bond kick lately. During November, we did Bond month. And
you watched all the James Bond films?
Every one of the James Bond movies. My wife and I sat down with him. She had never seen... I think she had seen Goldeneye, is the only one she ever saw. Maybe From Russia with Love. So we sat down and we watched all of them throughout the month of November, including, Skyfall, which definitely probably my second favorite Bond movie of all time at this point.
Skyfall was my favorite Bond movie of all time, but I have to admit, unlike Jerry, I've not seen them all. I've only seen the Pierce Brosnan and the Daniel Craig Bonds. And I've seen bits and pieces, but I have played a hell of a lot of GoldenEye, if that counts.
Well, it's worth watching. Yeah, I've been on a huge Bond kick. Played some of the video games for 360, GoldenEye Reloaded, James Bond Bloodstone, and playing a lot of those. But I've been reading the novels, and it's interesting because I don't know if you've seen Moonraker, but Moonraker was released...
I haven't.
I think Moonraker was released in like 79, 78, right after Star Wars hit. So everything was, sci-fi, huge. Roger Moore was the Bond in Moonraker, and it's about Hugo Drax, this guy who's doing unauthorized, space shuttle flights into outer space.
It's all Russian-based villains, correct?
Not at this point.
Not at this point.
No.
Okay.
In the Ian Fleming novels, kind of. Some of them are, early ones are definitely all Russian. But that one was 79. So
we're past the height of the
Cold War. Height of the Cold War, but we're not quite in the 80s yet.
Yeah.
But the guy's all concerned about, genetic engineering, like a perfect human race. The original novel is about a Nazi who wants to send a missile into London. Completely different. You can tell they really went off and said, oh, well, Star Wars is popular. Let's get James Bond in space with lasers. But the book's great. I mean, it's really different. It's a really different look at Bond. So I've been enjoying reading through those. Moonraker was the third novel written in 1954. Do
you prefer the books or the films? Just a story alone. Of course, all the acting, whoever your Bond is, take that aside. Just pure story. What do you prefer?
I'm going to have to say that the films are still a bit more exciting. I mean, there's more flair to the films. But the books are really solid. They're really different. I've only read 3 of them so far, but, they're worth giving a try to.
Is Bond as much of a cool badass in the novels as he is the films, or not quite?
Not really. I mean, Bond in the books is really underplayed. You get the idea he's this guy that, 48 weeks out of the year he's in an office. He just reads intelligence dossiers and writes reports. But about 3 or 4 weeks out of the year, he gets sent on these assignments, and
that sounds more like Jack Ryan than James Bond.
Potentially. I mean, these were in the 50s, so I guess maybe Jack Ryan sounds more like the original James Bond.
Good point.
But he always gets really beat up in the stories. I mean, he's not. Women like him, and he's daring, but he's not the bet anything that moves Bond that Connery and Moore and all of them really played up to. Really what happened was the books were popular. the movies kind of emulated the books a bit, and based off the books, but kind of emulated them, and then the books started emulating the movies later on.
From what I've seen tidbits of the old Bond movies
Yeah.
on TBS, the reruns that they
That's
would
where
show.
I saw them all originally too. Yeah.
Of course.
13 Days of Bond.
But oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, middle
TBS
school.
used to do
I
that.
was in middle school.
I was probably in 5th grade. I remember Bond being very, especially, he's always a bit of a womanizer, but I know some of his womanizing in earlier films is kind of a bit over the top. Is that a correct assertion? Or?
I think the womanizing gets to its peak probably about the Roger Moore era. Sean Connery was definitely. I'm not going to say that anything libelous like Sean Connery is a womanizer, but Sean Connery's portrayal as Bond was definitely definitely a womanizer. But Roger Moore took it over the top. I mean,
How is that? How is it in the Ian Fleming novels? Is that aspect there of womanizing?
Oh, Bond
or is
doesn't
just...
sleep with anybody
Really?
in the whole book of Moonraker.
That's crazy.
Nobody. He's got a job to do.
So the womanizing element of Bond was kind of added in there for a cinematic flair.
Yeah,
I
mean, there's always, in some of them, like in Live and Let Die, which is the second book, which Roger Moore made the movie in like the...
Which film was that?
Live and Let Die.
And it was Live and Let... Which number is Live and Let Die?
It was the first Roger Moore movie, so 7 was the 7th one.
And it's the first book?
It was the second book. Yeah, Casino Royale was the first book. And, anyways, I mean, I think the only woman he's ever with is Solitaire, who in the movie was played by Jane Seymour. But that's one woman in a whole Bond book. So I was a little shocked there. My wife was telling me that, when she was talking to her mother about, oh yeah, we're doing James Bond November, she probably was as enthusiastic as I made her sound. Probably more like, we're doing James Bond November. But her mom's like, oh, well, somebody gave me one of those books to read when I was younger, and it was a dirty sex book. But I haven't seen anything in the books like that so far.
I'm definitely not the Bond junkie that you are, but I'm glad. I feel much more well-educated on Bond, especially the Ian Fleming Bond. And I don't know if it makes me like Bond less or more, knowing that he wasn't originally kind of this womanizing, alcohol-abusing...
Well, the alcohol abusing is a little bit more there in the books than in the early movies, where he's just... kind of a suave playboy. I mean, you do get the idea this is a dependence type of thing in the books more of a flawed character.
Okay, well, Mr. Reed, thanks for the Bond knowledge.
Yeah, I want to talk about a couple other cool things that I thought were interesting. Today I actually got a Valentine in the mail. Got a Valentine in the mail from the Lego company. I'm a member of the Lego VIP Club, which means I buy a lot of stuff at the Lego store. And they sent me a little Valentine, which was all kinds of coupons and stuff for upcoming Lego products. Not really coupons, but information about upcoming Lego products, if you can hear it. It's actually a little Lego minifigure keychain. He's all shiny red vac metal. It's got a little keychain on him with a little Lego brick on it that says Lego. And I just thought that was a really neat little thing to find in my mailbox today. So far, my wife has got me nothing. The Lego company has got me a special minifigure.
It's a very cute little Valentine's Day Lego thing. So I was going to get into some of the stuff I've been checking out this week, and I picked up 2 brand new comics last week, and they were Superior Spider-Man #2 and Avengers #4. I really want to delve in a little bit to the Avengers #4 first. I can't say that I'm really digging what Jonathan Hickman is doing with the Avengers here over these first 4 issues. I'm definitely interested. It's keeping me. I want to keep buying the book. The art by Jerome Opeña is magnificent, and Adam Kubert, I believe it's Adam Kubert, provides the art for the 4th issue.
I think it might be Kubert.
Kubert. Okay, it's a bi-monthly. Avengers is a bi-monthly publication by Marvel, but in this latest issue, and I guess semi-spoilers for Avengers #4 here, is basically the idea behind Hickman's run is he wants to make Avengers this huge, grand epic, just grand in scope. you know, they're Earth's mightiest heroes, so he wants them to deal with the biggest problems within the Marvel Universe.
They do have a Hulk.
They do have a Hulk. And I just ordered the We Have a Hulk t-shirt today from stylingonline.com.
Nice.
Can't wait to get that. Check them out. They're awesome. But they do have a Hulk. But the kind of play with this Avengers book that Hickman's doing is he wants to create a bigger team full of some lesser known characters in the Marvel Universe. I mean, you still have Iron Man and Thor and, you know, Black Widow and Hawkeye and Cap and all those guys from the movie are there, but they're kind of mix and matching them with some newer characters. And a character they've introduced in this Marvel now is Hyperion. Now, Hyperion has been a character in Marvel before. There were several reincarnations, but Hyperion is pretty much another Superman ripoff. Which this was a little bothersome to me when I was reading this, and the reason being is I don't mind Superman ripoffs. The Century and Brian Michael Bendis' run on Avengers was one of my favorite parts of that book. But it's like, Century was so good, so dark, and he played such an integral part of that Brian Michael Bendis run. Do we really need to put a lot of focus on another Superman-like character? I mean, because in all honesty, Thor is the Avengers Superman, pretty much.
He's
I mean,
the one that he's a little more magical, but
but you get the analogy.
Get the point.
He's the all-powerful guy. It's like, all right, when nobody else can take someone down. In fact, spoilers here for Siege. If you've never read it, don't listen for the next 10 seconds or so. But Thor is the guy that the Avengers call in to take down Century. He's ultimately the one that takes down the Century in that whole Brian Michael Bendis run. So I was just, I don't know. I mean, Hyperion is definitely an interesting character, but I mean, I don't know if it's something that this run's going to be focused on, and it worries me a little bit. But it's definitely enough to get me, you know, really, I'm wanting to pick up the next issue, and over the next several issues, they're going to focus on some of these lesser knowns, like Captain Universe and Manifold and Cannonball, which were members of the new X-Men. And so, I mean, all that's fine and dandy, but I'm just wondering if it will, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you bring on newer characters, so it's like, all right, I've read, you know, Iron Man and Cap and Hulk 100 times, so, you know, let's take a look at the Hyperion and the Manifolds and the Captain Universe and see how they play with the Avengers, so you don't get that fatigue on the classic heroes. But come on. You want to see the Hulk kick some ass, and Iron Man outsmart everybody, and Thor dropping his hammer as much as you can in an Avengers book, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would, as a non-Marvel reader, as somebody who doesn't...
Jerry's our residential DC guy, I would say.
As somebody who doesn't read a lot of Marvel or read any Marvel consistently on a regular basis, if I went out and bought an Avengers book, I'm going to expect to see Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor.
But do you expect to see them? But do you expect them to be the main focus of most of the stories if you're reading an Avengers book?
I would think I would expect them to be the main focus, but I see the really big point, because when you have one of those big team up books, I mean, it's a great way to take someone who's a B-level character, a C-level character, and when you start throwing up to A-level character, I mean, look at the movies with Hawkeye. I would not have called Hawkeye an A-list Marvel character prior to the Avengers. And now...
Enter Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, enter Jeremy Renner, enter the movie universe, and suddenly, I mean, I think anybody starts giving the list of the Avengers, they're going to throw Hawkeye in there. It's just a great way. Same thing DC's doing with Cyborg in their new Justice League lineup for the New 52. I mean, Cyborg's been around. I remember Cyborg. Most people probably couldn't tell you who Cyborg was. Granted, a lot of people now still couldn't tell you who Cyborg was. But if you look at what DC's doing, they're really pushing Cyborg. They're pushing him to be on the team.
He's the dumb Iron Man, right?
He's not dumb. He's
and the not as cool War Machine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Marvel fanboy. But if you look at what DC's doing, on their kids stuff, like their little preschool toy lines and stuff, the Fisher-Price Imaginext, and I don't know what they're called, but they have Cyborg on there, so they're really getting at their kids and saying, hey, here's Cyborg. He's A-list. He's Justice League. He hangs out with Superman and Batman and Green Lantern. And they're building up another character so that in the future, hey, here's another A-list character. So it's always a smart thing to do. It just has to be handled properly.
And when you build up those characters in the film, it's a direct correlation to sales on the comic book shelf.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, let's think about it. Okay, before Marvel fanboys, comic book geeks in general, before the Iron Man movies or the Cap movies or just the Avengers and Thor in general, we cared about these characters. We may have read some issues of theirs, but they weren't the X-Men or the Spider-Man at that time. And now they're just as prevalent because of those movies, man.
Yeah.
And those movies move comics. Now, that can work one of two ways, I think. They can, he's giving me a grimace. They can move comics, and it can work in a positive and negative way. Now, positive, I will say, Matt Fraction's current run on Hawkeye. You mentioned Hawkeye. The film, Jeremy Renner's performance, which I know he was a bad guy half of that movie, but still, his performance was pretty good, and it piqued interest in the character. We get a brand new Hawkeye book from Marvel. It's some of the best stuff that Matt Fraction has written since his initial first 20 or 30 issues of Invincible Iron Man. And the art is fantastic. It's great. But so now we have a positive impact, and then you're always going to have, all right, a negative book, like let's say, let's just get push a book for this character because they're in a new TV show, like the new Arrow TV show. Are you reading Green Arrow, Jerry?
No, I'm not reading Green Arrow.
Okay, I'm not reading it either. I'd be interested to see how it is, but they're really DC's pushing some stuff with that. The Arrow show is definitely on top of a lot of their publications and stuff. And Arrow is, I'm pretty sure they're pushing him more significantly in the DC universe. So. I'm willing to bet it's not as good as Hawkeye, but that's just from a Marvel fan.
Well, the reason you got the grimace earlier was that I'm thinking it's not that the movies aren't pushing, aren't helping comic books or hurting comic books. It's just I don't think one movie makes a non-comic book reader really get into comic books. Comic books are daunting. If you're not willing to focus on, a ton of different books and storylines at one time. Rarely can you, unless you're reading something like usually like a Vertigo title or an independent title or something, rarely can you just walk into a comic book shop and say, okay, I want to read, Batman the Dark Knight, and you can read one title and understand everything that's going on. The big two, Marvel and DC, love to have everything interrelate, one big universe, everything's integrated. And that's really cool if you're accustomed to reading comic books, if you understand, crossovers and the way that stuff works, and history and minor characters, and if you're willing to put down $3 to $4 a book for, 15 to 20 books a month. But if I was just some regular Joe off the street that saw the Avengers and said, oh, Hawkeye was really cool, I want to go read Hawkeye, or, oh, I really like The Dark Knight Rises, I sure would like to go read the new Batman book. I don't think there's a lot of correlation that says that person is going to walk in and become a consistent comic book fan. That sales may go up for a month or so, but I don't think it's going to have a huge long-term impact.
I would agree with you until Marvel Now, which has been pretty much the new 52 for Marvel, what the new 52 was for DC. But the Avengers movie wasn't your average superhero movie. Biggest opening weekend of all time.
Oh,
the Hulk
huge,
smashed
huge.
box office
Records,
record.
that is.
That's right. kind of an inside joke here on the Confirmed Epic podcast, but it was a smashing success. It smashed box office records, and I really think the success of that movie had an influence on how Marvel is at least marketing Marvel now. And the Avengers are at the center of everything, and you know, you have the redesigns on the costume. Cap now looks like more like the Chris Evans Cap in the mainstream Marvel universe, where in the past that was just the case. In the Ultimate Marvel universe, same thing for Hawkeye, a redesign, not the classic kind of horn mask. It's now the, you know, the cool, sophisticated military get-up. So, I mean, I could argue that those movies, at least at how about this? I'll concede to you that point, but I will say that the Avengers was kind of a game changer for the whole comic book industry and the film industry.
I mean, I think we'd have to look. I mean, film industry, I absolutely would agree with you. Comic book industry, I think we'd really need to look at the numbers
and long-term numbers. I mean, Marvel now has just started. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's a month or two.
I don't have numbers offhand, but New 52 started. New 52 was having awesome sales, and now I think that most of the big issues of New 52, the big stuff like Batman, Justice League, Aquaman, you know, they're kind of back to where they were prior to New 52. I don't think
it's Batman, even with Scott Snyder on there, because I mean his stuff has been so
I think it's
acclaimed.
Still doing well, but I don't know that there's like a huge, massive difference.
Okay.
That I just think comics are such a different animal that someone could go watch the Avengers and say, man, I want to pick up all the Avengers, you know, build-up movies. I want to pick up, you know, Avengers T-shirts and, you know, Avengers hot toys and Avengers action figures and, you know, Avengers novels. I don't know if they write Avengers novels. Avengers underwear. But when it comes to comic books, I think it's a different thing. And I think if you weren't already into comic books, there's not tons. I don't think there's like, you know, millions of people that are just jumping on and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to commit every month to buy."
There are those few though.
There are few.
Worth it just for that.
No, there are definitely.
I just comics is just it's such a more hate to use this word, but it's almost Valentine's Day. Intimate experience, you know, more of an intimate experience. It's just you're there, you're like this isn't Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark playing Iron Man. As much as I love Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal, you're actually reading him, and there's just something special to that. And I think movies can turn people on. At least a select few can maybe turn them on and give them that experience. It's all worth it.
Yep.
So
all worth it. I was just looking Marvel Legends, the 6-inch long-running Marvel series, the action figure series that now Hasbro's been doing it throughout the past 5 or 6 years, I think. Hyperion is coming in their next wave.
Really?
Hyperion, and Sentry is Hyperion's variant.
Sentry is Hyperion's variant?
Yeah, they do some weird variants in the series. They don't even always have to be the same character. Like I think one of the recent series was Punisher and Blade were variants of each other. Kind of bizarre, but Hyperion and Sentry are the variants of one another.
I'm such a Marvel fanboy that I prefer Sentry over Superman. Well, I say Sentry is a badass
Then you want to pre-order Marvel Legends 2013 Series 1 set of 6.
That's right, and you can do that. Go to Big Bad Toy Store, our favorite place to pick up
Although you don't
figures.
know which figure you're getting with these variants. You don't know who you're getting, so...
to delve into another comic that I was reading is Superior Spider-Man. Now, we posted an article on, where we thought things were going to go with Superior Spider-Man, and if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know what's going on. Basically, they did a mind swap, and Doc Ock's mind is alive in Peter's body, and Peter's mind died.
You said peanut.
Died with Doc Ock's. Love the Family Guy reference there. Died with Doc Ock's body. Peter's mind died with Doc Ock's body. But before all that could happen, Doc Ock was able to get the whole notion of with great power comes great responsibility by getting all of Peter's memories. And he kind of feels this, all right, I know why he's doing this, in a sense, turning him good. So he's kind of this more dark-sided Spider-Man. The suit's black. He's kind of this. It's not as cool as when Peter got the symbiote, but it's cool in a different way, because Doc Ock is kind of a different kind of smart than Peter is. Kind of more. They're both geniuses, but kind of more diabolical. And but that's just it. That was kind of a backstory on what happened in 700 of Amazing Spider-Man Superior 1. I want to talk about Superior number 2. And I'll be interested to get your take on this.
Sure, because you're telling me about this Spider-Man I've heard bits and pieces that Dr. Octopus's mind and, Peter's body. And
it's really not that confusing,
yeah,
all right?
I'm looking at it, and it's
Peter's body, Doc's mind, with Peter's memories. So, and Pete is now come back in almost spirit form.
I feel like you're Jodie Foster and Nell, and you're speaking to me in this language that you've made up in the wilderness.
And I don't speaking Marvel right now.
I'm Liam Neeson. I don't get it, but I will learn.
Basically, now, and on top of all that, you have Peter's spirit, which looks like Bobby Drake, Iceman, in the background. It literally looks like Iceman in the background, when you have, Pete kind of telling Ock through, I guess, his memories, you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm listening to myself explain it. Sounds stupid. Why would I buy it? But I am digging it. I'm issue 2, man. I'm telling you. And here we get spoilers for issue 2 of Superior Spider-Man, if you're not completely turned off of the series by my explanation a few minutes ago. But basically now we get Ox saying, oh, here's Mary Jane Watson. Why isn't Peter with this guy? Where's this going to go? And all Spider-Man fanboys get this eerie feeling, is Peter about to, Ox, Spidey, Peter, whatever, about to sleep with Mary Jane? And, it's just, at first, things aren't working out with him. And then Ock's like, wait, I can access his memories. So he starts recalling all these times that Peter and Mary Jane have been together and all this stuff. And that part's a little weird. But later toward the end of the issue, there's a robbery, blah, 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 and we get to see Ox Spidey kind of come in and save Mary Jane. There's a really cool panel, and this was good writing by Dan Slott, and the art by Ryan Stegman is awesome. Even if you hate the premise, you gotta love the art, where Mary Jane's falling, and Pete's about to, or Ock, Pete, whatever, is about to, thwip the web out and grab her by the back.
Is that what it's called? Thwipping the web out?
Thwip the web out. Thwip. That's the sound effect. I know
it's the sound effect.
But I'm gonna thwip you in a minute. Should thwip you off. All right, enough thwipping. Okay, so he's about to shoot the web and grab her by the back, which is, what killed Gwen Stacy. Did that, broke the neck. Mm-hmm. And right as he's about to do it, Pete's memory kind of channels, and he's like, don't do that, that'll kill her. Spin a web. So he spins a web, she falls into the web safely. And that was a really cool character moment for all of us who are, have a soft heart for Gwen's memory, but especially with Valentine's Day coming up. But basically, by the end of the issue, you have Pete Ock Spidey comes to this realization that, which he's done this before, especially in Spider-Man 2, if you've seen the movies, that we pretty much just can't be with each other, because she's in love with both Pete and Spider-Man, and he has to be both, kind of that realization. And it's almost this, it seems legit, it's not going to work out. And by the end of the issue, you kind of had this feeling that, holy crap, it may not, maybe, it may not ever work out between Peter and Mary Jane. And even the memory, and you're like, well, this is Ock's mind, when Pete comes back, if he does, who knows, this may work out. But you kind of, even the spirit of Pete, if you will, is kind of like, man, it took Ock to kind of make me really see that, so, what's the point of this? And at the end of the issue, Pete's ex Carly becomes suspicious, and, it leaves you hanging that she may find out what's going on. But I don't know. So, Mr. Reed, what do you think about all that? I mean, are you completely turned off to the Superior Spider-Man now? Not that you were gonna read it, but just the idea of it.
I mean, I'm not turned off by it. One of the things that I've said before is that, sometimes you're talking about a comic plot to somebody or a movie plot, and they're just looking at you saying, that sounds ridiculous. But when you're actually in the medium, when you're actually reading the comic or the movie or, the book or whatever, the creator has a chance to make it work. The creator can set everything up, the artist does their magic, the writer does their magic, the pacing's right, and things can work. I mean, it is an interesting idea. It's interesting to what you've talked about, to swap everything, Spider-Man, Dr. Octopus in, his mind in Peter's body with Peter's memories. And
if you want to save $8 and a lot of confusion, just listen to this podcast.
There
you don't
you
have
go.
to read
Did
the first two.
I just explain the first 2 issues?
No, don't do that.
Okay.
Read the books.
Okay, well, it's interesting. It's something, if somebody ever had the trade and, passed it to me, I'd probably read it.
He may read it on the toilet, but that's about all it's going to be for him and Marvel. So, Mr. Reed, anything else in particular you've been checking out this week?
Well, it's not really new. If anybody's familiar with Zenescope Entertainment, they're kind of a little just independent comic company. This trade's from July of 2012, so it's it's not new, but I just picked it up. It's called The Theater by Raven Gregory. Raven's done some writing on some of the Grimm's fairy tales by Zenescope. But it's an interesting, it kind of reminds me of something like a Tales from the Crypt or House of Mystery or something. It's a comic where every issue is its own, independent little short horror story. I mean, there's one story about a guy that, has a hole that opens up in his ceiling and stuff disappears through it. There's one about zombies.
Is it an ongoing story or just a single trade? Or it's not an ongoing story, it's single stories, but is it an ongoing series?
I believe it is an ongoing series because while each story is independent, it's just a short horror story, it's framed by the things that are happening in this creepy old theater. So each story you're reading is like you're watching some, kind of different horror movie that they're showing in this decrepit old theater. Downtown, there seem to be some characters that are appearing in different issues in terms of the bookend stories. The 2 or 3 pages at the beginning, 2 or 3 at the end. But it wasn't bad. I grabbed it off Amazon. It was like $8 or $9. But it's worth picking up if you do enjoy things like the old Tales from the Crypt or House of Mystery, House of Secrets. You just enjoy reading something
American
short.
Horror Stories on FX, which is kind of the new version of that, which I don't watch, but I've heard raving reviews.
I just finished the first season.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and they loved it. It definitely changed over time. It was really scary at the beginning, American Horror Story, and I thought about halfway through it wasn't, and I don't want to say too many spoilers about a TV show that we're not talking about in depth.
Yeah.
About halfway through it got less scary, but more interesting and about character interaction, and I was happy with it. But you're right, I think the whole premise is each season is going to be a different story just with similar themes, although I think they're using some of the same actors in different roles, playing completely different characters. But it's like a Twilight Zone or something in comics, but it's Raven Gregory is the author, Novo Malgapo is the artist, and it's just an interesting, if you like horror comics, which that's probably the majority of what I read are horror comics, I'm more likely to take a, bite on something I don't know if it's a horror comic than I am in just a regular superhero comic.
So if you're into horror comics, then go to Amazon and check out The Theater by Raven Gregory, and the art's by Novo Malgado.
Looks like Mogado, yeah,
Malgado. Also, it's very interesting if you're interested in voluptuous cheerleaders, judging by the cover.
Well, if you're familiar with Zenescope, Zenescope's covers are, they're usually always women on the cover, but The stories have nothing to do with that. So.
Okay, well, they draw you in.
Yeah,
they
I
draw
guess
the
they draw you
red-blooded
in.
male audience
But
in. So.
check out Amazon, check out your local comic shop that stocks a lot of graphic novels. I'm interested just from the. It's nice to read a horror story that it's just a one-time thing. I mean, I like to keep up with things like The Walking Dead, American Vampire. I'll keep up with all those, but sometimes it's nice just to have a quick, short horror story.
Yeah,
this one collects,
definitely.
I think, the first 5 issues of the series.
Okay. I want to delve in real quick to one more thing I've been checking out this week. And I've been waiting on the second one to come out. I finally ventured down to my local Walmart, and I purchased the Dark Knight Returns Blu-ray adaptations. And when I first heard about it, I was really skeptical. I mean, the Dark Knight Returns is one of the most, if not the most, iconic Batman stories.
It'd be between that and Year One.
Year One, which they did a very good adaptation of.
They did do a good adaptation. I loved Year One.
But the Dark Knight Returns. I've only watched part 1. I'm saving part 2 for later this week when I get around to it. But I was stoked to watch part 1. And Walmart has a deal. If you buy both together, you get them for $35 rather than the retail $40. So check that deal out at your local Walmart. But it's beautiful, man. And I have the whole home theater get up, and the surround sound is it's insane for an animated feature, which a lot of the stuff like Year One and Batman Gotham Knights and that kind of stuff, Superman, Batman, Public Enemies, it sounded good and stuff, but man, it was just not quite Dark Knight Rises,
Good
lossless audio, but it was
this.
very good production values. You can tell they put a lot into it, and like a lot of people, I was like, you're doing the most iconic Batman story, and you're not getting the most iconic voice for Batman, at least in animated, terms. Kevin
Conroy.
And I was like, ugh, I'm kind of, skeptical about that, but hearing
Peter Weller,
RoboCop,
RoboCop, and Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah, I mean, it fits this story, guys.
It's a really different Batman.
Yeah.
I need to borrow it from you. I haven't seen it yet. I'm surprised I haven't, but I haven't seen it yet.
It really fits this story. Like you said, it is kind of a different tone almost to Batman. He's broken. He's pushed to the limits. It's very well done, and I'm not going to delve too much into it, but they do. Let's just say it's a faithful adaptation of the comic book, but at least judging just off part 1. But they do put a few different twists and character moments in there to make it worth checking out. So I'm not going to spoil that because there are some really cool moments in there, but the animation beautiful, the sound's great. So if you have time, definitely check out.
And Michael Emerson is the Joker. I think that reflects what you said about it. The voice is reflecting a different tone. I mean, obviously, Mark Hamill is the most iconic voice actor for the Joker animated series, the Arkham games. But
Michael Emerson is Finch from Person of Interest, and Linus.
And Ben Linus from Lost. And so, while Mark Hamill's kind of that over-the-top, crazy Joker in his prime, here's a Joker in the future who's a bit more conniving. I mean, he's kind of, faking this whole rehabilitation thing, and the book kind of leaves you. I mean, the book's been out since 1986, so I don't think we're doing too many spoilers, but, it kind of leaves you wondering, is he really rehabilitated? Is he still crazy? And Michael Emerson lends that nice, mystery to him. I think he has it about him.
I'll have to watch. He actually only utters, I believe, one line in the first part, so I'm really pumped to hear his whole take on the Joker in part 2. And part 1 is mainly about Harvey Dent and the mutants and all that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm telling you, there was a moment when they rendered the Harvey Dent scene from Dark Knight Returns where I watched it, and as soon as I watched it, I rewound it and watched it again. That's how good it was. So it's a very faithful adaptation. I don't think fans will be disappointed whether you're Dark Knight Returns fans, your Kevin Conroy fanboys, give Peter Weller a chance and, go out and check these out. But
I'm going to point out Bruce Timm actually is the voice of Thomas Wayne in it.
Really? Wow. Okay.
And
Bruce
Frank
Timm.
Welker is Mayor Stevenson.
Okay.
Frank Welker is the voice of Megatron in the original Transformers. Frank Welker was in, gosh, what was he in? He was the voice of Garfield for a while in 2005. He has been in I can't even begin to tell you how much stuff he's been in. Mainly Transformers is what he's known for, but he's been in so much stuff that he is actually the highest grossing actor in Hollywood up until October 2011 as a voice actor, when he was surpassed by Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson is the highest grossing actor,
now.
period.
Yeah.
Definitely DC really, the voice talent is top notch. So, check it out. But I just wanted to get into a section we are going to call Epic News, and I wanted to talk about a few news tidbits. I'm interested to get your take on this, especially being the DC guy you are. Wrote an article about the role that the Hulk's going to play in the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So you're interested in a Marvel news from a DC fan?
Yeah, well, you're a fan of the film.
I am, absolutely. I'm a fan of the characters, too.
You were Avengers at midnight, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm a fan of the characters. I have a ton of Hulk figures sitting around. I just can't keep up with the comics.
Yeah. Batman's my favorite character of all time, but I'm more of a Marvel guy as far as the company goes. So, to each their own, but I think we're all in it together as far as the film properties, and if you're a collector, collecting and stuff like that. But it looks like what they're going to do with the Hulk is, and I guess this, none of this is set in stone, but it's speculation, and I guess it could be considered spoilers for the next couple years of Marvel movies if you don't want to listen to the next 8-10 minutes or so. But what they're going to do is the Hulk is obviously going to do some kind of act, commit some kind of wrong some point during Avengers 2, and he will then be launched into space, resulting in Planet Hulk, which was written by Greg Pak and illustrated by John Romita Jr. That story is as I wrote, one of the best Hulk stories of the best of the last decade, one of the best Hulk stories ever written, in my opinion. And then, Marvel has their big Civil War, hero versus heroes over the Registration Act, having to reveal their identities. And then Hulk comes back with some people from the planet that he was on, Scar, and wants to kick everybody's ass. So they're saying that this is where we're going to go. In between Avengers 2 and 3, we'll have a Doctor Strange movie, Ant-Man, we'll do our Planet Hulk movie. Then Avengers 3 supposedly will be World War Hulk. And it has me scratching my head for two reasons. First of all, could not be more excited for the Planet Hulk film. So excited, more so than I am.
That pumps me up. I think that's the right way to go with Hulk. Is everybody else is, basically stuck on Earth. Now, Thor movies are kind of, more fantasy-based, going to Asgard or wherever he's going in the next movie, the Dark Realm. But, yeah, Hulk is, it's cool to have him set on another planet, kind of this more barbaric, barbaric story, lots of fighting. I have a little, Planet Hulk action figure. He's cool. He's got armor. He's got swords and shields and stuff, and the Hulk just looks great like that.
And and the interesting thing about the Planet Hulk story is it's able to show you depths of the Hulk character, and without using Betty Ross, that other Hulk stories have not been able to do. Just the true depths, the emotions of Bruce Banner and the Hulk. It's just able to really touch at all those things and make the Hulk more than somebody that just smashes. So I'm so excited for that film adaptation, even more so than something like Guardians of the Galaxy, which is Phase 2. But I was really upset when I read that World War Hulk would be possibly Avengers 3. And a couple of reasons for this. Number one is they're neglecting Civil War. And now I know this is a fanboy dream run rampant in my head, but Civil War is my all-time favorite big event, crossover, line-wide crossover in the history of comics that I've read. Of course, you know, there's stuff that predates me even, but that I've read. I'm so excited to see this play out, especially if, you know, Robert Downey Jr. can stay on as Stark and Chris Evans as Cap. We already touched at their differences in dynamics in the first Avengers movie. So, I mean, so excited for that. And World War Hulk is just, it's not as big of a story. It's kind of Hulk coming back to get revenge. So, you're telling me, like, all Avengers 3 will be them fighting the Hulk? I mean, what's your take on this, Jerry Reed? I mean,
well, my first thought is, with some of the things you're talking about, you know, the Avengers, I mean, I recognize, yeah, some of these stories are huge. I mean, Civil War was huge.
Huge. I mean, maybe
yeah,
the biggest.
It was massive. It was massive. But I guess to me the issue is, does every Avengers movie have to try to squeeze a massive, you know, Civil War was at least a year, wasn't it?
It was if you include the prelude and all that stuff, yeah. But it was 7 months.
Okay, I mean, like a 7-month multi-titles. I mean, it had its own book, but I know it bled over in every title. Is it really the best idea to try to squeeze that into? I mean, it's a great. Story.
But we're not squeezing it. We have it as the backdrop of some of these other films. Maybe by the time we end Avengers 2, things are already trending in that direction of superhuman registration and things like that. And you know, it looks like I'll make this counter argument. We talked earlier when we were talking about the Avengers comic is they're Earth's mightiest heroes. That, you know, it's big stuff when the Avengers are called in. You know, even more so than the Fantastic Four or you know, the X-Men or you know, and it's the same way for Justice League and DC. You know, this is the big stuff, the stuff that threatens the planet. And I'm all for these great, intimate, like smaller stories and stuff with but I think we can handle those in the individual movies.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, I think bigger's not always necessarily better, but I really think that's the direction we're going with Thanos and Avengers 2. And I think they'll have to up the ante even in the third one.
Yeah. Well, I have 3 thoughts.
All
One,
right.
I don't know that every big event in the comics needs to translate into the movie universe. I mean,
Not everyone,
sometimes
just
they
Civil
work.
War.
Sometimes they work. Number 2, Civil War, it's an interesting idea. It's a great comic, but I have to wonder, you know, is Marvel Studios and, you know, Disney, who's backing all this, are they really going to want to do a story where Captain America and Iron Man are truly at odds with one another? I think it's a legitimate issue. I know it's an exciting thing, but you're taking 2 really big heroes and suddenly, you know,
but it's something different by this
pitting
point.
them against each other over an ideological issue.
Which is a commentary on the Patriot Act.
Well, I absolutely, I see that. It's just wondering, is that what Disney's going to want to do? And number 3, does Civil War have the same impact if the X-Men are not involved?
I think so.
That you don't have mutants and X-Men and all of these other characters, because let's be honest,
with Spider-Man. If Spider-Man's not involved,
Spider-Man's not involved.
He's not involved. He's over at Sony.
X-Men's not involved.
X-Men
with Fox.
X-Men's not a huge. I mean, they play a role in Civil War.
But I mean, the mutant registration thing all comes out of X-Men stuff originally.
That was mutant registration, yeah. But
that's a big basis, I think, where
superhuman registration is something even more encompassing and wider in scope.
And so we have to look at who are the superhumans in the new universe. I mean, what, Hulk and Thor's a god. I mean, how are they going to make him register? Hulk.
There's an answer to that.
Okay.
Kill him. Kill him
Yeah.
earlier. Which is what happened. He was dead at that point in the comics.
I don't know that much.
But you bring up, is it going to work without a lot of the big players who are over at other studios? And the big one is Spider-Man, cause spoiler alert for Civil War #2. Spider-Man, this is when he reveals his identity. Stepping sides with Iron Man in the Superhuman Registration Act. And his internal struggle with this is a huge part of Civil War. And are you able to do that with a different character? Because obviously that works so well because, I mean, Spider-Man is Marvel's #1 guy. He's their go-to. Spider-Man is what moves Marvel. So I don't know if that's a great point. I don't know if it will have that impact, but I think they can make it work.
I mean, everybody at this point is like on the side of the government. I mean, they're all working to protect the world.
Right now in the Marvel film universe.
The Marvel film universe, I mean, everybody's on good terms. You know, they've all just saved the world. And, I mean, I know people are kind of, in the movie universe, they're sort of weary of, what Nick Fury's doing, the shadowy, jugglers or whatever, the folks who are behind... the government people that Nick Fury talks
jugglers,
to. Yeah, those folks that he talks to.
Can I tie this back to Hulk real quick? When you're looking at this stuff, you talk about shadowy figures. The Illuminati play a big role in sending Hulk into space, which is another problem as far as different characters being at different studios because the Illuminati are a secret society that handles all they're to kind of handle the underground work and behind the superhuman world. And this Iron Man, Reed Richards, Black Bolt, leader of the Inhumans, Professor X, and Doctor Strange. And I think that cast can be, that roster can be adjusted. They can make it work. Of course, it suck not having Professor X and Reed Richards there. But I think by the time all this rolls around that things are going to be to the point, especially with whatever Hulk does at the end of Avengers 2, that, hey, we had to do something. Look at the threat that superhumans pose, which we will see with what the Hulk does in Avengers 2.
They did build a little bit of that up in the Avengers that we're talking about.
So the foundation is being laid a little bit.
There's some foundation there.
So... do you want to get into the big Star Wars news of the week?
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it here. All right.
The spin-off movies.
Star Wars spin-offs.
Apparently, all the J.J. Abrams, the Skywalker story, which will be 7, 8, and 9, will be released between 2015 and 2020. All 3 films, and in between. Of course, nothing confirmed, but this is what Lucasfilm and Disney are hinting at. We're going to have these spin-off movies. The Yoda is a complete rumor at this point, I think, is what you have confirmed.
Yeah.
But there's some legs to the Han Solo and the Boba Fett one. So what do you think about all this? You're the Star Wars guy.
I'm just speaking generally that I'm excited. I am now excited that new Star Wars movies are coming. I'm excited that, that they're in the hands of fans. I'm saying fans at this point because, I mean, let's face it, people like J.J. Abrams, people who are involved with these movies, they saw Star Wars first as fans. Lucas could never do that. I love George Lucas. I love everything. I love what he's done. But if you're not a fan of something, you have a different idea. Even if you're the creator, you have a different vision than the fans who experience the work. I am excited to see what fans are able to do when they can take, characters or elements of the Star Wars galaxy and now create new stories based off of them. I don't know that I like the idea of a Yoda movie, because I think Yoda, I don't mean this is not knocking against the character, but just the kind of character Yoda is, he works best in small doses. He's that, he's that mystical character. He's that sage. He's that person you go to when you really need that advice, or when things are really grim and there's you have to go to him for help. He's kind of that character that he's so important and removed from things that to do a whole movie based off of him
maybe kind of ruins a little bit of the
mystique
the
that's
mystique
there.
to him.
Yeah,
That whole
I don't
mystical
necessarily
element.
want to know what Yoda was doing when he was only like 300 years old and a young Jedi or something like that.
You don't want to see him train Count Dooku? Wasn't Count Dooku, was he Yoda's apprentice? Right?
He was apprentice of Yoda at one point. But I do like the idea of being able to explore things. I think I'm looking at what Marvel Studios has done with Marvel, and they're doing their main movies. I'm seeing this
It's all Disney too.
Yeah, all Disney. 7, 8, and 9 is the main the tentpole films. But then you have all these like side stories or spin-offs or just other stories that take place in the universe. I think it'd be really cool. Like the first thing that came to my mind, and I'm sure this probably came to everybody's mind, is it would be cool to see a story about some of the bounty hunters in the Star Wars universe. I mean, some kind of like war with the bounty hunters. Those actors, other than the 6 bounty hunters that show up in Empire Strikes Back.
Which you can name all 6,
I can name them. IG-88, 4-LOM, Zuckuss, Dengar, Bosk, and Boba Fett.
That is impressive.
Dengar's the only one that his face is shown, and it's shown for just a few seconds, and I think you could easily have somebody else play Dengar. It'd be cool to see a movie would take like some new bounty hunters, those 6 bounty hunters, you have Boba Fett in there as well, and do a story about, some kind of bounty hunter war, something about that. I mean, do kind of a grim space, grim and gritty space western type of thing. Take a group of Rogue Squadron pilots. Do a space like a war movie that's set with the Rogue Squadron pilots from the Rebellion and about some mission that they're on. Do some really cool creative things. Explore backwards, explore forwards in the universe. But just do some stuff that's off the beaten path a little bit. Because I think the issue that's going to come up is, are these new movies going to ignore the major characters and actors of the previous films? Are they going to reference them only? Or are they going to recast? I think that's a big issue that they're going to have to figure out.
But if they do like a young Han Solo story or a Boba Fett story or something like that, I mean, casting is not an issue then.
I think that would be okay. But for some things, they're still going to have to deal with that issue. Like if they want to do another, a side story like with J.J. Abrams movies, if they want to do Star Wars 7, you come with that issue. I don't think Harrison Ford would return. I mean, he said in a number of interviews.
Oh, come on. He'll don the hat, the fedora, and the whip.
He said in interviews, there was an old interview, and this interview asked him, they said, if you were ever asked to play Han Solo again, would you? And he said, something blah, 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 blah. He's not a deep enough character. I did it. It's done. And they said, well, what if they asked you to play Indiana Jones again? He said, in a New York Minute.
Yeah.
I just don't think Harrison Ford, he doesn't need the money. I just don't know that he would return. I don't even know if he'd return for a cameo.
Well, maybe when you do the main 7, 8, 9 trilogy, maybe you work out that problem. You don't recast. Maybe Han has been killed.
Maybe Christopher Walken now plays Han Solo, like all the old, the old rumors that he was, or I guess maybe there's some truth to him, that he had read for. I think he did read for Han Solo, because Kevin.
Peter, was it Selleck? Tom Selleck, didn't it?
Indiana Jones. Tom Selleck was
that Indiana Jones?
Yeah, I did read for Indiana Jones. But there was it Kevin Pollak or Kevin Spacey? I think it was Kevin Spacey does the Saturday Night Live thing where he plays Christopher Walken playing Han Solo, or Christopher Walken, playing Han Solo. So
out of everything that's been proposed, the Yoda, the Han Solo, the Boba Fett, out of those 3, which one do you want to see the most? And not including those 3, any spin-off Star Wars movie, what would it be? Would it be the Bounty Hunters?
Of the ones you said the most, I would want to see a Boba Fett movie. I mean, I think it would be the most interesting, and Yeah, I mean, I realize that Boba Fett's also a character that's really mysterious, but you know, he's so awesome. I could do a movie based off of him. I was thinking about who else I would want to see that was really, really, really off the beaten path. One character that's been developed in expanded universe stuff is Kyle Katarn. I think I'm saying it right. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but he was in the Dark Forces video games. He's had action figures made. He's been in comic books, and he's kind of this rebel character who does become a Jedi during the original trilogy series, but he's sort of involved on the periphery of everything that happens. I mean, he's kind of one of the dudes that does help get the rebels the plans for the Death Star. So you could kind of have him mingling in and out of major events in the original movies, but still doing his own thing as well.
Okay, of the ones that have been proposed, I would have to say I want to see the Han Solo origin story, which is going to be set between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. I don't know what it's going to focus on exactly. Originally, you know, Han was supposed to be in Revenge of the Sith. He was supposed to be on Kashyyyk. Is it Kashyyyk?
Kashyyyk.
Kashyyyk, you know, Chewbacca's home planet, helping the Wookiees out there. And I thought that would have been cool to see, but ultimately they decided it wasn't going to add too much, so they scrapped it.
And he was originally an Imperial. Han Solo was in the Empire.
Okay,
He
really?
was an officer.
Really?
Yeah, he was an officer.
And that's why he is here, ladies and gentlemen, the Star Wars guru, the guru of all things geek. But I honestly never knew he was originally an Imperial. He just blew my mind here. That's the kind of thing you can get on the Confirmed Epic podcast. Are you sure about that? Is he?
Yes, he was in the Imperial Navy. He was ordered to skin Chewbacca, and he decided not to do it. So he commandeered a ship carrying Wookiee children destined for slavery. I'm reading Wikipedia now. I looked it up.
Wikipedia?
Well, I'm reading Wikipedia, but I could be on Wikipedia as well. That's how Chewbacca swears the life debt to him, though.
Okay. Well, it all makes sense. I'm a Star Wars fan, not a Star Wars guru, unlike Jerry. So it's good to have that knowledge in my world, or my galaxy now. Yeah, so I mean the Han Solo film, I don't know. I think there is, you know, Harrison Ford said there's not too much to that character. There's not much depth. I won't say I don't really agree with Harrison Ford.
Well, I'm not quoting Harrison Ford verbatim on that one because I don't remember exactly what he said. That's been quite a few years.
The idea is still there. I would say more he's withdrawn a little bit because of the things that he has witnessed, you know, across the galaxy, being the smuggler. So
I thought you meant Harrison Ford.
No,
the things he's witnessed across the galaxy.
If you see a lot of Harrison Ford interviews, he is a very shy, introverted, very. He's not how a lot of his characters are, which would be brash and, you know, very outgoing.
Get off my plane.
Yeah, stuff like that.
He would probably ask nicely in real life.
But you know, I look forward to talking about what's coming down the pipeline. You know, we'll have more about it on the blog and on the upcoming site about the stuff in the works in the Star Wars pipeline.
It's going to be an interesting. If things start kicking off in 2015.
Yeah, 2015, but that's what they're shooting for. But it's looking like it may be more 2016.
2015 through 2020.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an interesting 8
3
years.
movies
Interesting 8 years.
Spin-off movies in between. I hope we don't have Star Wars saturation in there.
I think we're going to get the Lobot Chronicles.
But every week here on the Confirmed Epic podcast, we'll have a featured review. And this week, our featured review is going to be the new Sylvester Stallone movie, Bullet to the Head.
You know what I am? A problem solver. I take out the trash. I remove those hard-to-get-at stains. Oh, let's just put it this way. I'm a people person.
And that was from the trailer of Warner Brothers' latest film, Bullet to the Head, starring Sylvester Stallone, which we saw on opening night this past Friday. And, Jerry, initial reactions on Bullet to the Head.
Initial reactions on Bullet to the Head. I'm a Sylvester Stallone fan. Have tried to convince my wife that Stallone is a perfectly acceptable name for a male child. I'm gonna guess it means stallion in Italian, but that might just be wishful thinking. Sylvester Stallone, man, he's one of the old guard. He's one of those action hero stars that it doesn't matter what he's in. It doesn't matter how good it is. I'm probably gonna watch it anyway. But I really liked it. I wasn't sure what to expect with the movie, and after watching it, even though it was an above average movie, wasn't great. We're talking 3.5 stars on a 5-star scale. 3.5. I walked out of it feeling like I'd watched an action movie that came out in the late 80s, early 90s.
And that's just a great feeling. I felt that way in the Expendables too.
The Expendables were going for that, and I like the Expendables movies a lot more than Bullet to the Head. But I felt more like this actually felt like a movie from the late 80s, early 90s. Maybe it was because it was a little generic, but it just...
For both good and bad reasons.
For both good and bad reasons, but it had some of just the...
It captured that nostalgia feeling.
It did. I mean, it had the buddy cop dialogue. I mean, between... Even though they both weren't cops... It had the whole, lots of, close quarters, guys, throwing each other through bathroom walls and stuff.
Kind of Lethal Weapon moments.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Momoa was the main mercenary character who's going after Stallone the whole movie, or Stallone's going after him. I mean, he's like this, foreign guy with a ponytail who's ex-special forces. I mean, that's just like every 80s, 90s action movie.
He plays Drago on Game of Thrones Season 1.
I haven't seen it yet.
He is a brute beast on
Conan.
the show.
He was Conan the Barbarian. I sat through the whole darn movie, I'm thinking, this guy looks so familiar. Where have I seen him from?
What's so interesting is, though, on Game of Thrones, he's this kind of brute beast who speaks a foreign, some kind of Game of Thrones language. He's like, It's almost kind of the same character he was in Bullet
He's probably
to the
just
Head.
talking about the plot of Superior Spider-Man, and nobody understands what he's saying. He was Conan, too. I mean, Conan's like the barbarian, sword-fighting guy, and his character in this movie was, he was a great villain. He was cold, he was ruthless, he seemed to enjoy just gunning down random people, and you just were waiting for Stallone to put, here it comes, a bullet to his head.
I kind of had that. My initial reactions to this film were, when I first saw the trailer, I was like, "What? Man, you know what? These old action guys are making a comeback." We had Schwarzenegger in The Last Stand in early January. The end of January, we get Stallone and Bullet to the Head. And, of course, next month we get Bruce Willis in Die Hard 5.
Dolph Lundgren just put out another Universal Soldier movie, too. It was direct to video. But it just came out. Yeah, they're still making movies.
And that's great to know for all of us 80s action genre nuts out there. And there are a lot of people out there. And I think we will both agree on this point. This is a movie that, just based from the trailer and the premise, if it didn't have Sylvester Stallone in it, we probably wouldn't have saw it.
I don't think it would have been anything that would have popped up on my radar.
No, but you see, Stallone, he looks badass. It's as you say, it's a quintessential revenge flick. You have all those elements in there, and there's Christian Slater's in it. Talk a little bit about Christian Slater in this movie.
Well, Christian Slater's character is a lawyer.
Without any spoilers for that.
Well, I think we should just do the general plot of the movie real quick without too many spoilers. That Stallone plays a guy named his name's James Bonomo, but he goes by the name Jimmy Bobo because that's apparently better than James
all you
Bonomo.
Need to know right there.
Jimmy Bobo. Let's see. Stallone is a mumbling tough guy. He cracks a lot of jokes. You know, basically like every other character he's ever played. But he's a hitman, and him and his friend get called in, or his partner, get called in to do a hit on this guy who turns out to be a crooked cop. And the folks in charge who ordered the hit decide that, you know, well, now we got to tie up loose ends, so let's kill the hitman. Let's kill Jimmy and his friend Lewis. You know, I mean, it's early in the movie. Anyways, Lewis gets killed, and Jimmy decides he's going to go on a rampage and take everybody else out. Well, the partner of the cop who gets killed decides that he wants to come in and work with Stallone and make sure that these guys really pay, because it's about the people who are just too big to go through the normal channels of justice. You know, the cop, Taylor, his name's Taylor Kwan, and he's played by...
He's from Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. He's the one of the leads in that movie.
Yeah, Soon Kang is
Soon
the actor's
Kang,
name.
okay.
So anyways, they get together and decide that they're going to go put a lot of bullets to a lot of people's heads. And so that's the general plot. They're both looking for revenge, even though one's a cop and one's a hitman. You know, they both lost partners to these guys who were too powerful. So Christian Slater's one of those guys. He's a lawyer. He's a lawyer in Louisiana who's involved in this, you know, whole real estate scam. I mean, he's just kind of a, you know, he's not on there a lot, but he's just kind of this Weasley, hedonistic little...
It fit him very well.
It fit in well. I mean, he kind of has this grin about, you know, oh, nothing bad's going to happen to me because I'm made of money. And
nothing bad's going to happen to him. On that note, can we go ahead and let's do what we like to do here on the Epic Review podcast, the confirmed Epic podcast, and roll the reel forward to spoilers. Alright, so spoiler
time.
For Bullet to the Head starting now. So nothing bad's going to happen to Christian Slater, Jerry Reed.
Stallone threatens him with like a pair of hedging shears. I think he threatens to, like, you know, cut his junk off. And then I'm pretty sure he shoots him in the head with an old rifle. One of the things I really liked about this movie, that I enjoyed about it, is... so many action movies these days, I mean, still, ever since The Matrix changed everything with action movies, you know, everything's real slick. I mean, you have lots of, like, really coordinated gunplay, and, I mean, stuff's almost...
so choreographed.
Yeah,
everything.
it's so choreographed. This movie was a little more raw. I mean, it was a little bit more... It seemed plausible.
Which made it feel like more one of those 80s movies.
It did. It seemed more plausible. I mean, there's a lot of hand-to-hand fighting. I mean, I was counting of all the time, you know, like all the times Stallone threw people into a wall. Knocks a guy into a wall in a bathhouse, a restroom, a parking garage, you know, just everywhere. I mean, it was real close quarters. You know, Stallone's he's a big guy.
He's 5'10",
He's
right?
only 5'10", which is pretty average height, but you just look at him next to other people, and he looks massive. I mean, I know people like to joke that he's old. You know, one of my coworkers, I said, I'm going to go see the Stallone movie tonight, and they said, oh, Rambo 55? But you look at the guy, and he's...
Rambo 5, I wish.
Yeah, I wish so, too. But he still looks massive, and he looks like, I mean, his arms are huge.
They're like, I mean, seriously, I mean, they're like boulders.
I
His
know.
legs are like tree trunks.
You really believe...
He looks like he's drawn straight out of a comic book.
Yeah, you really believe he could do, like, 95% of the things he does in this movie.
He in almost every movie he's in, I mean, besides Batman, I would say if I'm in a bad situation, he's the guy I want to come get me out of that situation.
Well, he's gonna do it too, and he's got a heart of gold. I mean, he's a hitman, but he doesn't kill women, he doesn't kill children in the movie.
I mean,
he makes that clear.
Bullet to the Head is very cliche stuff we've all seen before, but it's cliche in a good way. It brings you back to all those good memories you had, you know, watching those old Stallone movies. What's the one with Demolition Man?
Demolition Man with
Sandra Bullock's
Joaquin
in
Phoenix.
that, right?
Yeah, or no,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Joaquin Phoenix. The guy who the villain was named. It was Wesley Snipes. What was his name? His name was Simon Phoenix. Simon Phoenix was the character's name, but it was Wesley Snipes was the actor that played opposite him in Demolition Man.
And my favorite part of this movie is just it is the lines that Sylvester Stallone delivers, and it will be hard. This is only our inaugural edition of the Confirmed Epic podcast, and we just started doing the Epic review and all that stuff. But it will be hard for a movie line in 2013 to top "You Had Me at Fuck You." I'm sorry.
He makes all those little, smart comments, and it was just really funny.
I died laughing, and at the same time as that was hilarious, I thought, that is so badass, too. And only Sylvester Stallone can make you feel that way. I mean, you're either into these kind of movies, you're either the Stallone, the Schwarzenegger, the Willis, the Lundgren nut, or you're not.
I think that's the point, because like a lot of people I talk to who are, a little older than me, or maybe even a little younger, were like, why would you watch that? Growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, I mean, these guys were icons. You didn't get any more...
And if you didn't see it in the theaters, even if you're a little younger like I am, you saw them on WJZY or UP and the reruns all this stuff.
Somebody'd have the VHS tape, and everyone's like, oh, let's get together and watch Predator, let's watch Alien, let's watch Rambo. And you think about those guys, how many of the roles they played became, like... Iconic in terms of, I mean, if you see somebody who's like all geared up for whatever, you say, oh, look at Rambo over there. Or, oh man, I mean, everybody knows what a Terminator is. Doesn't matter. It's like
and the lines lines. I'll be back. Schwarzenegger. I mean, yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah, I mean, look at Dolph Lundgren. I mean, I think people still understand what you said. If you're a He-Man, I mean, they just. Those guys were so iconic I'm 29, and when I was a kid, I mean, I just knew that, these guys are the coolest of the cool. I mean, these guys can do anything.
What's the best Stallone quote, you think?
In any movie ever?
Movie. Single Stallone line.
Oh, my gosh.
One-liner, if you had to.
Well, I really like the quote from the end of this Rocky Balboa, the 6th Rocky movie, when he does the fight with Mason the Lying Dixon, and he goes to Adrian's grave at the end. He does the, yo, Adrian, but then he goes, we did it. It's just such a, I mean, it's just
I was going to say,
so cool.
Yo, Adrian, and that, even better.
That or Rambo, when killing's easy when your back's against the wall, or I think that's right.
I just, there's so many good ones. I mean, Yo, Adrian, I mean, that's my favorite and the most recognizable, but... I love it in Rambo 4 when there's like, the missionaries were coming in, right, and they were wanting to change things. Like, you bringing any guns? You're not changing anything. I mean, just stuff like that.
He's just one of those guys that, I mean, I know sometimes I'm like, maybe this might be a little cheesy, but he seems like pretty real. I think he does bring a good realism, even though he plays the same character often. He brings a nice realism to the movies he's in. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
And the director of Bullet to the Head, I can't recall his name.
Walter Hill.
How old is he? He's like 82 or 72?
He's definitely an older guy. Directed a lot of movies, a lot of action, a lot of westerns. I think a really good quote from him, I'm probably butchering a bit, was like basically he said every movie he directs it like a western, So he has some of those.
This had kind of that feel.
It does. I mean, it has some of those archetypes to it. But Walter Hill directed a couple movies. I'm just pulling up his filmography right now on the Epic Review computer. But one of my favorite movies that he directed. Well, first of all, he was a co-producer on Aliens. So that's an Alien and producer on Alien, co-producer on Aliens. So. Worked with...
Sadly, he was also a co-producer in Aliens 3.
Which is not a bad movie until the studio got a hold of it, But some of the movies he's directed that were really awesome action movies, one is The Warriors. I don't know if you've ever seen The Warriors. I actually have a Warriors poster on the wall right here.
I actually haven't seen it.
This great movie about all these, these gangs that get together in New York. I mean, it's kind of a fantasy. It's kind of gritty, like a gritty 70s movie, but it's also like has fantasy elements to it. Some of these gangs are just outrageous. It might be from the early 80s, but it's this great chase through New York, and the whole movie's just moving. This one gang called the Warriors is accused of assassinating a gang leader, and they're just trying to get home through all of New York, and everybody's following them. Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis, just one of those underrated action movies where, like, the whole movie is just such a simple setup. So it seems to be, when Walter Hill directs, kind of his forte. I mean, this movie just moves along from scene to scene.
It does. You're not on the edge of your seat because you know what's coming, but it's a tight movie.
It was very
well.
tight. I was interested. We started watching it. I didn't know much about it other than Stallone was in it. And I'm watching the editing at the beginning of the movie because it had this, real fast-paced, very stylized editing, which did not last through the whole movie. Pretty quickly, it just looked very traditional. But the first maybe 15 minutes was very stylized, and I thought, well, this kind of reminds me of a graphic novel. And then it said, based on the graphic novel by, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize. It's a French graphic novel. The author's name is Max, and the art is done by Colin Wilson. But after seeing the movie, I actually snagged the graphic novel and read it. So,
How was it?
it was great. It was really, really different than the movie. It's kind of one of those where if I didn't know, if they didn't share a title, if they both weren't called Bullet to the Head, and I was reading the graphic novel and watching the movie, I may have thought, huh, both these have main characters named Jimmy. Or, both of these have a cop and a criminal getting together. But it's so different.
Kind of like the Wanted graphic novel compared to that movie.
Yeah, I mean this was, Bullet to the Head is a straight up, revenge movie. This was more like a traditional crime
drama.
Yeah, it was a crime drama.
So it wasn't necessarily like every page like action. Excuse me.
No, definitely not. Definitely not action the whole way through the book. But it's really good. Story wise, the graphic is much stronger. But I enjoyed watching the movie as well.
So, movie or comic, which you prefer? I think I know your answer.
I'm going to say the graphic at this point.
Really?
I'm going to say...
I haven't read it, but I figured just for Stallone.
It was just really interesting and has a lot...
So you could argue that the film doesn't do the story of Bullet to the Head justice.
I think somebody could easily take this story and make something that is much more profound. Because it's kind of a... I mean, I don't want to, get too crazy, but it's got a lot of philosophical talk in the comic book about what these two guys are doing, much more than the movie where Stallone gets pissed and says, let's go put bullets to their head, which he doesn't say that I remember.
No, I don't think he delivers that line in the film. So I think it's safe to say that we both recommend Bullet to the Head.
Yeah, I recommend it. Like I said, if you're going in this movie, if you're right now sitting there and you're saying, I like Sylvester Stallone and I like action movies, go see it. Catch it at a matinee if you want to, but go see the movie.
Yeah, it's one of those good movies just to go in, turn your mind off for an hour and a half. It's not going to take up a lot of your time. It's probably not going to make anybody's top 10 of 2013, but it is definitely like the most fun I've had at the movies in a while. There was a lady behind us who was... Oh, she was cracking me up.
She was cheering. She really, maybe, I don't know, if it was like Stallone's mother or something, and, I don't know, but she was really into this movie. She was almost
into it like it was a horror movie, like every twist and turn, she's like, oh, watch out, get it.
Yeah.
And, normally, a person like that would piss me off. But it just fit this movie, man. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I loved it.
I was sitting there laughing at tell him. It was great.
There are certain movies where that's okay, and Bullet to the Head, I don't know if that's an indictment saying that for this movie, but Bullet to the Head is definitely one of those movies, and we ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5.
3.5 out of 5.
We don't always agree, but on Sylvester Stallone, I think we can both agree. And this was, good revenge flick, like Jerry said. Go catch it. So we definitely recommend Bullet to the Head. And I think that's just about gonna do it. Unless
That'll
you have
wrap us
anything
up.
else you want to add.
Well, New York Toy Fair is coming up this weekend.
Okay, talk a little bit about that.
Sure. New York Toy Fair is a trade show. It's not, it's not really like San Diego Comic-Con where you have lots of fans hanging out there. You either have to be an actual buyer for, a big retailer like Toys R Us, Walmart, big online stores, something like that, or you actually have to have some type of press credentials, although they do let some fan sites come in that have a large number of large audience. But New York Toy Fair is coming up. It's usually the first time in the beginning of the year that we start seeing the new lines that are coming up for the next year. So just a couple things I'm really looking forward to. We've already seen some pictures of a lot of the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles classics.
And we had Bebop and
We
Rocksteady.
have Bebop and
on
Rocksteady we
the
covered.
blog.
But those are coming up. It'll be interesting to see if we see anything else. Mattel's showing lots of things. Obviously, their biggest line right now in the fan community is probably Masters of the Universe Classics, where not only are they going to be showing about 4 or 5 figures from coming out this year, but they're showing Castle Grayskull, which is a $250 playset that they did strictly on a pre-order basis. It's going to be massive. It is the new Masters of the Universe figures are 6 to 7 inches. Castle Grayskull is going to be as in scale with them as the original Castle Grayskull was to the old Masters figures.
Wow, it's going to be a huge playset.
It's going to be massive, and they did a pre-order for it to make sure they met enough pre-orders before fans even saw it, and they hit that pre-order, and I think they probably exceeded that number, and so we're hoping to see a prototype of what the sculpt's going to look like. It's by the Four Horsemen, who are the ones that do this line for Mattel. They're excellent sculptors.
When's the official release date?
The official release is going to
but
be probably December of 2013.
So Christmas 2013.
Yeah.
Check eBay if you want one.
Check eBay, but during the year, Mattel's probably going to be doing some opening up for pre-order and stuff.
That's good.
Maybe from time to time, you might see some early in this year. Of course, Mattel is also, putting out lots of DC product. What I am most excited about is, after years of legal issues and all kinds of hassles, it seems that there are lots of rights to get out product based on the 1960s Batman TV series.
The Adam West series.
Adam West, Yvonne Craig is Batgirl. It's going to be fantastic. Cesar Romero is the Joker.
When I saw this announcement, because I'm wrapping up my Batman Hot Toys collection, getting Bane, Catwoman, and the movie Masters for Dark Knight Rises, wrap that up, and I cringed with excitement when I saw this announcement. Cringed with excitement. I was so excited for this, but cringed that, oh my God, it's like you have to get it.
No idea what they're gonna do. Most likely, I'm hoping.
NECA announced the 18-inch Batman.
NECA has announced some product based on it. So it sounds like there's going to be a real merchandising blitz. I imagine with Mattel, we can probably expect some figures that are kind of in that 6-inch scale, like the movie Masters
that's
that
what
they've done for
The
Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises, and they're doing some for the upcoming Superman movie. So
that's what I was gonna. I love that scale. I love those movie Masters figure for Rises and the Dark Knight. So if they can just have a movie Masters type line, I'll definitely be one that I will hope to invest in.
Only thing that concerns me is distribution. Mattel has had some real problems with distribution, so we'll have to see if they put the line at retail, or if they put the line on their MattyCollector.com website and do, subscription like they like to do. Masters of the Universe, their DC line right now, the Watchmen line are all done by subscription only. I mean, there's a couple figures available the day of sale.
That opens the market up for NECA or somebody to come in the retail side, right?
It potentially does, although who knows, Mattel may decide to go retail with these because NECA really doesn't have an in at places like Walmart or Kmart.
Gotta go to Toys R Us.
Yeah, Toys R Us carries a lot of NECA's product. Of course, one other line that we'll talk about really briefly is Star Wars Black. For years, fans have said, it'd be cool to see Star Wars figures in the 6 to 7 inch scale, because Star Wars has always been in that 3 3/4 inch or 1/18 scale. Well, now Hasbro is releasing Star Wars Black. It is a new line of Star Wars figures that are in that 6 to 7 inch scale. That means they're going to be as big as most of your Marvel and DC, action figures. They're going to have better detail. They come in a really neat little collector's box. They're doing 4 figure waves, and the first wave is Luke Skywalker in his X-Wing gear. It is the X-Wing gear. It's not the, white gloves and white boots like his Hoth gear. With the snowspeeder.
That's the picture that's been
the picture's been circulating
the
the most. Obviously with that scale, the helmet's going to come off, although the helmets come off on the 1/18 figures as well. Darth Maul is in this wave. R2-D2 and a Sand Trooper.
Okay.
I'm excited about it. I have hundreds of Star Wars figures. I don't plan on rebuilding my galaxy in a scale that is twice the size of those other guys. And they're going to retail for about $19.99 a piece is what I've heard. So they're going to be fairly expensive.
They look so much nicer than your basic 6-inch figure, just with the packaging.
Yeah, the packaging's really nice. I mean, until we see some real prototypes and stuff, I'll hold off a bit. But I can see fans getting into this to buy like favorite characters. Like, yes, I want a Boba Fett. Yeah, I want a Darth Maul. Yeah, I want a Bosk. But I don't want to pick up every single character that I've bought.
This seems like a huge investment for Star Wars collectors who have been investing their whole life.
Star Wars has always been a huge investment for Star Wars characters, or for Star Wars collectors. I think everybody puts, if you want to be a Star Wars collector, you better put,
that's
better put
why
some money
I'm not.
into it.
I
yeah.
want a Darth Vader helmet,
a
a Millennium Vulcan, and that's it.
Yeah.
And an Empire poster in the movies.
Well, we'll see lots of cool stuff. We'll see more toys from the the G.I. Joe line this year to focus on the movie Retaliation. We'll probably see more toys for some of the Marvel movies that are coming out this year. More Iron Man 3 stuff. I'm sure we'll see, I think I said earlier, lots of Ninja Turtles things. We will see plenty of new stuff from the other big upcoming movies that will have toy lines. This is to sell to the retailers.
Right. Thor: The Dark World coming out in November, and you mentioned Man of Steel and
Man of Steel. Yeah, we've already been seeing a lot of Man of Steel stuff kind of released. I mean, some of it has been maybe unauthorized shots and stuff.
Yeah,
but we're starting to see
like
some
the
real
Zod shot.
Yeah, we're starting
circulating.
to see some real publicity shots from Mattel.
And it's safe to say that we can find your coverage of Toy Fair on the epicreview.blogspot.com.
Sure. Now, we're not going to be doing, by-the-minute coverage.
No.
But we'll try to do some great commentary.
Which is what we always try to do.
We're doing commentary on it afterwards. I'll be giving my thoughts on the best of the best.
So, Jerry Reed, where can we find more of your stuff this week?
Majority of everything I do is actually on Amazon.com. If you go to our thepicreview.blogspot.com, you can check out any of my articles, and at the bottom I always have a link to my Amazon reviews page. It's my favorite place to review action figures and toys because it's really easy to use at this point, and of course also people are directly buying toys from there, and a lot of the reviews I see are just not very good. So I thought, well, let's get some good quality reviews right in the place where lots of, moms, dads, collectors are buying toys. Of course, I'm also working to get reviews up on Epic Review Blogspot as well.
Yep, and we got a lot of great stuff down the pipeline and in the works with the blog, transferring it over to our own site and stuff like that. And I'm Brad Bell, and you can find all of my stuff at Twitter at @TheRealBradBell. That's real as in movie real, DREEL, Brad Bell. And you can find all of my work at the Epic Review. The Epic Review, just one word, THEPIC.blogspot.com.